Hello, welcome back to the channel. Today we're looking at a story that has been making waves in Cape Town. A court has approved the eviction of foreign nationals who have been occupying a piece of land in the city. This decision has stirred up a lot of debate, with strong opinions on both sides. Watch until the end so you can hear the sources and try to verify the news yourself. Now, let's unpack what happened. For several years, a group of foreign nationals had been living on a piece of land in Cape Town. Some of them were asylum seekers, some were refugees, and others were simply undocumented people trying to find a place to stay. Over time, the land became crowded with makeshift structures and informal housing. For many of these families, it was not just land but the only home they knew. Local authorities, however, argued that the occupation was unlawful. They pointed out that the land was not meant for residential use and that safety standards were not being met. There were reports of poor sanitation, fire hazards, and overcrowding. Officials also argued that the land could not be properly developed or used while it was occupied in this way. The matter ended up in court, and now the ruling has come down. The court has approved the eviction, meaning the families will have to leave. Authorities say they will be working with humanitarian groups to provide temporary shelter, but the details are still not clear. What is certain is that many people are now facing uncertainty about where they will go next. Reactions to this decision have been very mixed. Some South Africans believe the ruling is fair, saying that the country is already struggling with housing shortages for its own citizens. They argue that land occupations create unsafe living conditions and block formal development. For them, the court ruling feels like a step toward order and fairness. On the other hand, there are human rights activists and immigrant groups who have strongly criticized the decision. They say that evictions do not solve the bigger problem, which is the lack of affordable housing and the lack of proper systems for refugees and asylum seekers. Many believe that throwing people out without a long-term plan will only create more suffering. After all, where will these families go if they are pushed off the land with nowhere else to turn? The issue touches on a much larger debate in South Africa. With high unemployment, rising poverty, and limited housing opportunities, tensions over land use and immigration often boil over. For many locals, the presence of undocumented immigrants feels like added pressure on an already stretched system. But for immigrants, the reality is even harsher. They left their countries due to hardship, conflict, or economic collapse, and now they face rejection even in a place they hoped would give them safety. Cape Town officials say they are not targeting people unfairly but rather enforcing the law. They stress that unauthorized occupations cannot be allowed to continue indefinitely. The court echoed that sentiment, saying that while people's circumstances are understood, the law cannot be ignored. It is a delicate balance between upholding regulations and recognizing the humanitarian crisis at hand. As always, this issue raises tough questions. Should land be reclaimed no matter who is living on it, or should exceptions be made for vulnerable groups? Should South Africa carry the responsibility of housing foreign nationals when it already has millions of citizens waiting for RDP houses? Or should there be a bigger regional effort from neighboring countries to address the root causes that push people to leave in the first place? These are not easy questions, and there are no quick answers. Now, before I continue, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so. Hit that button, and join us for updates on the news that matters most in South Africa and across the region. Your support keeps this channel going. Back to the eviction ruling, some local residents near the site have expressed relief, saying that the area had become unsafe and unhygienic. Others say they feel bad for the children and families who will now have nowhere else to go. It is one of those situations where there are real human beings on both sides of the argument, and whichever way the court ruled, someone was going to feel hurt. The evictions are expected to take place soon, but it remains to be seen whether everything will go smoothly. In the past, similar evictions have led to protests and even clashes with law enforcement. Community leaders are calling for calm, and humanitarian groups are urging authorities to ensure that no one is left on the streets. What we can all agree on is that housing and immigration are two of the most difficult challenges facing South Africa today. Until there are bigger, long-term solutions, we will continue to see cases like this one. People will always look for a place to stay, even if it means occupying land illegally, because survival leaves them with no other choice. And governments will continue to push back, because resources are limited, and laws have to be enforced. To end off, let's lighten the mood a little. You know how South Africans love land debates, but imagine if everyone fought as hard for gym memberships as they do for land, maybe we'd all be walking around with six-packs. But until then, the only six-pack some of us are fighting for is the one in the fridge. All images used are for illustration purposes only. Sources: News 24, Daily Maverick, Ground Up, and SABC News.